and call a meeting to order. So we can just, because it's 6:09. Call the meeting to order. Can everyone just say their name and say here? Because as I said, I don't know everybody that well yet, and I can't really see and down through the room. So I'll start with myself, Gail Sievert here.
All right, Theo Knoll here.
Sam Hockenberry here.
Well, let's do the committee first.
Yeah.
So we'll skip over us. Go ahead.
Sure, Carol Plotkin here.
Karen McMaster here.
And then John.
Hi, I'm John Chrisley. I'm a Humphrey Street resident.
Oh, so you're the member of the public, sorry.
So we don't.
I don't know all the plans.
We note that as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Yeah.
And hi, I'm Samantha Elliott. You can see me kind of back here. I'm the town senior planner.
Yeah, and I'm Noah Harper with JM Goldson, housing planner working on the housing plan, and my associate Flavio is over here just observing.
I'm also part of JMG. I'm more a support role tonight.
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Well, we don't have a quorum, but as Sam had said, we are probably not going to vote on anything, so we will just move forward with the meeting. So number 2, item 3 is public comment. So John, you're the member of the public. Would you like to make any comment?
I'm here on a learning mission to learn more about the housing production plan. I learned a little bit about it from Theo, exchanging a couple of emails, but I'm very interested in the topic, and just in the interest of full disclosure, I'm a candidate for town council.
But also, you have a background volunteering in Wakefield, particularly around the Safe Streets Working Group, which you've been involved with for a number of years. And
Right, and I guess I'm still officially a member of the Master Plan Advisory Committee.
Very good. Any other comments? Anybody? Okay. So item 4, discussion. This is where I'm going to toss this ball over to Noah and Sam to go over the visioning session of tonight. So take it away.
I didn't know. Did you want to show your slides?
Yeah, I might want to show you guys.
Figure out how to grab that.
Okay. All right, Sam's going to do some technical things with the Zoom, but I think overall the plan for this is come up with ideas. So a month from now, we'll bring it back in an outline format. We'll talk through the ideas again, turn them into sort of more finalized list. And then a month after that, we're going to have 2 public sort of like community open workshops. We'll present the stuff, we'll hear what people have to say, and then we'll do 2. We'll do like one on one night and then one on a different night, so someone could make it. And then that'll give us like a really good sense of how the town feels about things. And then we'll revise it one more time, and we'll have like a really good sense of our goals and strategies, ideas. But today is more about the brainstorming, the spitballing, coming up with a good list of things, so me and Flavio can go and turn it into like a nice outline for you guys to critique and help us like make even better to share with the public. That's the general plan there.
I can't get it to work up there. I'm going to text Sherry and I'll see if I can get it to come up. But for now, you could try to ask on there, but I don't know that it's gonna.
Yeah, I'll ask on here, and really the slides, this is a very slide light day because I think it's more about this packet that I emailed out. So hopefully if you guys can pull it up if you're not here in person, Gail can take a look at it on there, and printed out some copies too. Just 5 activities really to get the ideas flowing. And I also shared what this will look like eventually, what the outline looked like for Danvers. Did this back in the fall, and just showing how this all fits into the housing plan. We've done the research part. We've done a little bit of community engagement. We're going to do some more in April to make sure that we got things right. And people usually, when there's like ideas to react to, come out much more in force, I'd say, than just sort of, well, how do you feel about housing? So I expect we'll get like more folks interested in it a little farther down, or at least that's been the case historically. But yeah, I think if I'm not gonna share the slides, there was just a couple things to refresh our memory on engagement and the housing needs assessment. Presented to the planning board last Tuesday, I'm gonna say, basically the same presentation you guys saw back in December of, here are the big takeaways. There's gonna be a lot of more senior populations. There's maybe not the housing right now to meet the demand of current low-income people. I think it's close to 2,500 people that are struggling to pay for their housing bills right now, paying more than a third of their income. So there's a lot of real need in Wakefield today. And I think the future, we're only gonna see more of that. So the first activity, I think, is this vision statement. It's, if anyone had a chance to do any of the pre-work, like think about, where do you want Wakefield to be in 5 years from now? Do we want it to be more affordable? And if there's a sentence or two you'd have to share. And maybe it's not affordable, maybe it's something else entirely. But yeah, I think if that's okay for the chair to open it up for conversation, if anyone has thoughts from the very first thing. And
You should do this.
okay,
Absolutely. So anybody have any thoughts on the vision statement, activity 1? In 5 years, housing in Wakefield will be, what is it gonna be?
Years is a short period.
yeah,
Yeah.
That
true.
really is.
Absolutely.
5 years. You said 10,
yeah.
but 5 is short.
No, and maybe we could make it 10. The housing production plan, like on paper, is a 5-year plan, but the things that are gonna be in here are not all gonna happen in 5 years. And let's try to get the constraints away to think like, where do we want housing to be, maybe is the better way to frame it. And it can be on a longer time horizon.
Okay, well then,
Yeah.
I'll jump in, and the thing I've been thinking about is, will be enlivening Main Street, right? So infill development, more people living, eating, working, like in that Main Street corridor. So that's,
Appreciate that, Sam. Anyone else on like the longer term vision for what housing could be in Wakefield? It could be really specific, or it could be like a broader thing of, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was passing the ball. Like,
Passing the ball. Go ahead.
Well, I had several thoughts.
Yeah.
And I'm here, of course, representing the Council on Aging, so my focus has been on seniors. But one of the things I was thinking about was to make a successful plan, as much engagement as you can have. So I think there was something in Danvers, I don't remember what they called it, but I know in Boston, they call it like a housing innovation lab or something like that, right? I may not have the terms right, but I was thinking in the first part of trying to have a more formal innovation, because I'm afraid that we'll just keep trying to do the same things and just do them better. So to really be innovative and
Yeah.
pull on people's ideas, like they're doing this innovation lab that's even a partnership with, a university or something. So that's
Yeah.
one thing that I was thinking about in the short term. And then out of that comes some more detail, or maybe some ideas.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the ideas, but I know they're out there with people who are perhaps more innovative than I am. But I will just frame the senior piece, because I've talked to a lot of seniors, and the general frame for seniors is that there's housing that's safe. So safe comes up, manageable, and to your point, Sam, close to others, close to the downtown where people can walk. And so an idea that I've been thinking about for even before this, is the idea about putting roommates together.
Yeah.
And having sort of this, not a real co-housing situation, but there's a lot of people in town with big houses who
Yeah.
would like somebody, and, so can someone screen those kind of things and match people up to live together? And then my third idea, or my last idea, because you may be sorry that you passed.
no.
I have two more ideas. One's really a question. Can the town ever buy property? Let's say I wanted to sell our big house. and the town buys it and they can turn it into whatever they want to turn it into. Do towns do that?
Mhm.
They do,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah,
So something like maybe in particular the Affordable Housing Trust could do. is
right,
Purchase some
like
land.
some kind of a, you know. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if the people who are selling their houses, you know, there's still the fair market value part, but also get, like, moved up on a list to get into whatever the new
Hmm.
senior housing is.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that. And then finally, I was thinking about the position of maybe grant funded of a transition coordinator, because as I've listened over time to people here and certainly people at the senior center, people have such a hard time changing. And they say, I want to stay in my house. I just need you to retrofit it. I don't want to move. And some of that just isn't realistic.
Mhm.
It's wonderful and I understand it, but is there a way that we can help with those transitions? So those were my ideas.
Hey,
And I'm a
Carol,
Therapist by training, so you can tell. me.
That's great. Yeah.
Carol, I have a question, since you are connected with a lot of the seniors. This kind
Yeah.
of came up. Did it come up in the housing or in the planning board meeting? I was at that one too, but do you have a feel for the number of seniors that are currently living at home that, I mean, just can't afford to upkeep their house? Forget about even retrofitting it for,
Right,
you know, whatever, but being able to fix their roof or their heater or
right.
that kind of stuff.
To be very inexact, a lot.
Mm,
But I think you,
Yeah.
you had some of that data, didn't you know, or about broken down demographically by people who were living, needed affordable housing?
Yeah, we did. And I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. That's my super weakness is.
It's a big
It's a big number.
number and it's, I think what people are seeing is that there's nothing between staying in their existing house and going to assisted living
Right.
or to a nursing home. And I think what I'd like to see is that we help develop something in
Yeah.
between.
Mhm.
Like there's towns that have cottage communities where there's little small properties with a shared courtyard kind of thing, or those sort of middle things.
Right.
And I don't get the sense from seniors that they necessarily need anything fancy.
Nope.
Safe is really the word, safe and
Safe.
affordable are the guiding principles, I think,
Mm.
for seniors, rather than, you know, I have to have 2,500 square feet or something. I think people would be happy in 1,000 safe square feet or 850 or what. So I don't know if that answers your question, Gail, but
Yeah, I mean, I said this has come up, that the whole thing about like, there's how much of the housing stock that's out there that's kind of falling apart because
right.
people can't afford to upkeep their house.
Mhm.
There was another comment that was made and once again, I'm like Sam, go to so many meetings, I can't remember who said what. Karen, I think maybe you might have said this at one of the meetings. Was it related to your mother that she didn't like the idea of going into like an apartment type condo? What she really would want is like a townhouse.
But not even a townhouse. She's like, you know what, if they made, you know, we see them online, like those miniature homes or something small that's still hers, because
Yeah.
we've taken her places to look, and we did this with my grandmother and everybody. It's really not convenient to be, say, down on Foundry Street, be on the third floor, have to walk down the hall, go down the elevator, across to the garage. It's less safe for them in that way. And that's not what they've been to. My mother's been in her home for 55 years. To go to that kind of lifestyle, she's not going to do that. And I think despite the houses falling apart, they don't want to go into that kind of living. They don't want to live in a concrete establishment, you know, they want something smaller. And on Carol's idea with putting seniors together, that could work great. Do you know what I mean? And then they could maybe stay in their homes while letting other seniors stay in a home environment as well, or a house environment. So yeah, that I hear that all the time. So we have friends that are 60 plus getting into their 70s. They're staying in their houses because they don't have a choice. You know, my girlfriend's got 4 stories with 2 of them living in them. And she's not selling because there's nowhere for her to go. You know,
Right, I
so-
think Noah, that came up in your research too, that, I mean, a lot of
Ton.
where we're at now economically is people, especially that are on a fixed income, can't
Mhm.
afford anymore to leave because there's no place for them to go that's affordable, that's small.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
right. Or you have to remember too, when they signed in with their mortgages, what were their interest rates? Now, if they were to sell and redo that, so you have that in the mix. There's just so many factors, but people like living in that house environment and they really don't want to go into an apartment style, a condo living, and I hear it over and over. And I think,
seniors don't like vertical,
no,
as much.
elevators.
Right, they prefer, in general, but
yeah.
it
you're-
did make me think of a word for the for the overarching thing, which is alternatives, that
Yeah.
we come up with alternatives that are different than maybe what we have now with the apartment
Right.
form.
Can I just interject with one quick question? Kind of just going off this before you switch to something else. If you're talking about size for somebody like this, what size, you're saying mini home and that can mean a whole bunch of different things. I presume they don't want a lofted bed.
Right.
What is it? 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom studios, like,
So you did Danvers area, correct? Did you ever
Yeah.
see any of the affordable elderly houses that they had there?
I haven't been in.
I'm gonna use, well, Harts Hill, I'm gonna use that as an example. That is a great community.
What is it?
Harts Hill,
So, okay.
I think it's our only senior
Right.
community, but something that's like their own. They don't need a lot. They need a kitchenette, they need a 1 bedroom, a little living area and a bathroom. And to open a back door and a front door, that's kind of, and they can walk out.
Yeah.
Some of those people have clotheslines, so they
Right.
feel like they just downsized to a miniature home. So I think that's the size I'm talking about.
A shared courtyard.
Yeah.
Read a
Yeah.
lot about courtyards in this.
Yeah, I love the-
Right.
Those.
Yeah. And I
But
think
I'm
it's
get-
affordability with land and building, and I get all
Right.
of that too. I mean, they're gonna put up something bigger because of the cost of materials and stuff, but that's not gonna make anybody sell their house and move.
it's also what our zoning is. It's
That too.
down to
Yeah.
multiple factors too.
Right.
I think there's some low hanging zoning for just on these ideas you guys are saying, so I'm really enjoying listening to
Well,
it.
So I guess to piggyback off of this, I think we need middle housing, right? I
Mhm.
think that's the
Yeah.
technical term. But I think the effort of that is maybe the focus should be on trying to help seniors get out, because that's how we create the vacancy chain.
Yeah.
That
Uh,
I can move from the apartment to the house because now the houses are being vacated, right? Like it's not necessarily that we have to build more like big homes, if the big homes will open up when the people who are in it leave, right? So that's so if we need to focus on one kind of housing,
Yeah.
maybe it's the kind of housing that gets seniors to transition
To something else.
into something else so that we can then have people who can, if there were more of those homes then available, would be able to afford to buy the home that the senior's looking to sell, so that then, if I'm gonna live in a home for 50 years, doing the roof repair makes a lot of sense at the front end because I'll outlive the roof in that house, right? Like that's, so I think maybe if we're gonna prioritize it and put in 5 years, maybe we need more middle housing so that the seniors can start moving out.
We're both like, we're just talking alternatives here. It's like trying to create lots of different options. for
Right.
People and not restricting it. And I think with the ADU work that's already ongoing, there's gonna be some opportunities for cool, small houses and backyards or attached to something that
Right.
like will be a reality in a
Yep.
few months or even like definitely before 5 years.
So just one small question with that, because I kind of researched that a little bit. So say you do one of those houses, do you have to provide parking for somebody or are they going to be out in the street?
I think it depends.
Depends. It
Yeah.
Depends on where the property is located. If it's within half a mile of transit, which includes a bus stop or the commuter rail,
Yeah.
then there's a zero parking requirement. If you have,
Oh.
any portion, the entirety of your parcel outside of that half-mile radius, then you'd have just one space they're permitted to have. Or the ADU bylaw is, there's a draft that's online. You can also email me.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious with that. Yeah, because with the current, like what just happened now, and I just happened to drive through another city or town, oh my God, the streets, because these people probably didn't have any off-street parking.
Well, and if you have a situation where you have multiple people renting and rooms, essentially kind of just congregate living,
Yeah,
or whatever phrase you want to use, an almost boarding house situation,
Right.
a rooming house, then you could potentially also run into parking issues as well.
right.
So, I mean, if it's an area that's completely maxed out, you might have to shift some of that. You might have to have some conversations with people. But there's lots of different things.
Yeah,
you
okay.
Leads on, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to answer any other
right.
questions about ADUs, just let me know.
I think, I really like talking about the housing stock and coming up with alternatives and, yeah, in that missing middle. Affordability that needs to be central, because, and this is the hard nut to crack and it's near impossible,
Yeah.
a lot of times, but I think, having more of an awareness or a commitment and an understanding of all that it takes to make, a small condominium affordable or a 30-unit rental affordable or something like that, really goes a long way to help, I think, diffuse some of the opposition or the I don't understand this kind of a thing, so that then we're talking about, I think, faces and buildings, so that we are thinking about what does this look like, or what does, how do you put it together so that it's not so daunting, because people are doing it. It takes a hawking lot of money to do it.
Yeah.
But, but you can be strategic and and so I think that's really critical, because we're, because I want seniors to stay in town. I want Wakefield to be more accessible to younger households to move in. The graph that you need $272,000 to afford a house.
Yeah.
That the income distribution doesn't match that. So it's like, that's impossible.
Theo, do you mind if I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just a question, then.
That's to Gail.
Oh, yeah, go ahead,
Oh,
John.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't know who.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Gail. So I can only see the woman on my right-hand side of the screen. She was talking about some larger houses and some of the costs that seniors incur just to stay in their house. I think, did you mention something about energy costs and energy efficiency a minute ago?
Yeah. Not really, but that's a terrific segue.
Yeah.
Well, I would have two ideas that I wanted to float out there, and this stems from a conversation that I had with Theo online, which is I work for public facilities. I work in the energy program, developing energy projects for the state construction agency, DCAM, for about 15 years. So I have a kind of a background in procurement for public facilities. But the idea I was kind of kicking around was I went to a presentation on universal design housing for senior citizens. And just because I've worked with a lot of architects. And so I went to this webinar looking at like 1.5 story housing where, there's very few stairways. Like one of the other people just mentioned, it's usually a small, 1.5 size unit where the kitchen, the living area, the bathroom is all on the first floor, to allow senior citizens to have what the architects call universal access. So it's based on the dimensions that really fit somebody in the senior citizen, age bracket. So the idea I had with Theo was, I know that public entities can put out a procurement tool called a request for information. So my idea was to put out an RFI for, an architectural firm or a design build firm to come into town and say, what were the criteria that the Wakefield need to look at to be able to incentivize some of this universally designed housing. It could be, a 2-family home, it could be a 4-family home, but it's with some of the other issues percolating in town, and keeping seniors active and close to services. It seems like that type of housing stock would be very valuable.
I do have a question to the kind of the group about, I mean, those are good points, John. But I mean, at the end of the day, a developer,
Exactly.
they're all in to
She's
make
gonna
money.
make money,
I mean,
that's it.
I mean, that's great. That's what I love about this is they're awesome ideas. But at the end of the day,
How do we make it happen?
they want money.
Yeah.
They're going to get it through their developer fee, and
Yeah.
they're going to get it through their rent and their cash flow.
Mhm.
And if and with the costing of, supplies nowadays, and it's only going to get worse because if the tariffs go into place, building, I mean, I can tell you in my business, we're trying to push a lot of stuff through because we have deals that were dependent on solar tax credits and energy tax credits that may not be around anymore. So, but I mean, I would love to encourage developers to get a piece of property and put, a few smaller houses on it. But the question is economically, what's the incentive for them?
Right. Yeah.
I will say that as it relates to, I would like to see, and where there is incentive, is to put in a low income housing tax credit facility, whether it's for family or for senior. Once again, it doesn't help. There's still, most of the time, these are going to be 2 or 3 stories high. So it is more of an apartment kind of complex type thing. But the nice part about LIHTC is you can do income averaging, which means that, okay, so if you look at, like most of the time it's 80% of AMI or less, but you can do income averaging, which will allow people that are making 100% of AMI, or maybe a little bit more, 110%, to be able to have one of these lower priced rent, units. So that's where teachers can go, and the civil servants and social workers and those kind of people can afford then to live there. I mean, we've done a number of projects using income averaging that has allowed for both spectrums to be able to do it. It's encouraging, and that everybody wins. The people that live there win, the developers win, the investors win, everybody wins. It's just, and that counts, 100% of those units count toward the SHI in Massachusetts. So like, for example, if we look at the top of the lake now, what's that called? The basin? I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just think about it. If those entire thing would have been low income housing tax credits, that would have been 400 units that we could have said that are low income housing tax credits. But we can't control the developers that are coming in here for a property like that, right? Like, they came in, they're going to make money. So they're going to put up these, 400 units at, max prices because they can.
Right. We're still getting 18-20% of those units for SHI.
Right, we're getting some, but still, it's a little skewed.
Yeah. More would be better, agreed.
But what
Yeah,
is the
exactly.
cost? Even that cost at that price is still very expensive for people.
A studio is gonna be renting for 2,050.
That's not affordable. That's
That's
for
not
a studio. So how is that affordable?
Right.
So I know people that have actually applied for housing that don't even meet that criteria. But then they can't go on to Section 8 either. So where do those people go? That's, I mean, we can, and until we can find the solution, anything we do here, it's hard to make any of
As somebody who lives in that middle spot.
it, right?
Yeah, well, the two of us
Yeah.
share multiple bedrooms at that price point. So never mind a studio doing one.
That's not affordable.
Yeah.
The benefit of still adding that kind of housing,
Right.
people who can afford it then don't compete with my roommate and I
Okay.
for our place.
Yep.
Right? Because then they'll go to the landlord and be like, we'll pay a couple $100 more.
Yeah.
And so then my roommate and I are SOL and we have to go find the next place. Like that, it does move that demand that can afford those things to somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that is.
I know,
a-
that, I'm glad,
Good.
thank you for.
Yes.
To reduce the pressure on the landlords to consistently and sometimes dramatically raise rent.
Right.
Because there's more of a supply and demand balance.
Right.
When there's really high supply and there's very low demand, they
Right.
have fortunately, the way capitalism works is they have every capability of just continuing to rise it until people won't pay
Right.
anymore. And then we get a higher vacancy rate,
Mhm.
which we have right now in Wakefield. And so actually the affordable units are starting
To go
to,
down.
yeah, the ones
have so
have
many.
one that their rent was originally approved at $2,400 for a 1 bedroom. And they dropped it down to 21 because that's what the market is right now.
Right, okay. But even that, that's a lot of money.
Are there any, speaking of developers, are there any sort of unused properties that developers are stuck with now that they can't, for whatever reason, do what they thought they were going to do?
I don't know. That'd be a good question.
Right.
I don't know, isn't that restaurant Moolise? Isn't that the
Right.
restaurant Moolise? I mean, wasn't that supposed to be something? That's still stuck in limbo.
Or,
Restaurant's that.
or like in the Danvers one where they were looking at Liberty Tree Mall.
Yeah.
There are other kind of buildings that there's a,
Yeah.
schools, all that stuff that can be done. But yeah, developers will want to make money. I think you all probably know more than I do about this, but there's a program in Massachusetts for nonprofits to build housing with some support from the state. Do you know about that program?
Yeah, that's the LIHTC program.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah,
And-
so
and
there
there's-
are
What's
what
the
we call
acronym
LIHTC
for?
developers. They
Yeah.
do use a low-income housing tax credit
Low
that's
income.
Yeah.
Okay,
supplied by
okay.
the
Much
state.
jargon floating around.
Yeah.
And then we also have, for properties that are located within part of the MBTA community district, there's state tax, not tax, state grants that are available.
right.
There are incentives out there. It's just
Yeah.
that you not only have to know that they exist, and have a developer that's aware of them, but have somebody want to go through that because it will slow down a project slightly,
Right.
to be able to do something like that. But part of the benefit of MBTA communities is that they've removed a lot of the zoning barriers,
Right.
from other developments.
You know, another thing that I'm seeing in Wakefield too, this gets back to the vision, and I think to what Sam was saying about the middle, right? I mean, in my neighborhood alone, there's been so many houses that would have really been considered starter homes.
Mhm.
You know, the little capes, even my house isn't that big. But that these families are moving in, and because it's, you know, housing is so expensive, they're spending the money to add and make them just that much bigger. So that
Construct additions.
where you saw this smaller housing area, you know, these little capes,
Yeah.
they're now turning into not quite the McMansions, but you know,
They're-
close to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we're really, and even more so running out of that mid-market, you know, starter home.
So that's kind of what's happening with the seniors. Their houses get so in disrepair that a developer's gonna come in, take it over, because for somebody like me or somebody in a starter to have to invest that kind of money, I think a lot of those homes are going to the developers and they're either knocking them down or they're fixing them up and making them unaffordable for that mid person.
But there's also one other kind of thing that people aren't always aware of, when that comes into play. A lot of times when a piece of property goes into an estate, whoever is holding that estate is incredibly unrealistic about the amount of money.
Money.
There's a lot of sentimental value that they place with
Yeah.
the house because they grew up, their parents have been there for 40,
Right.
50, 60 plus years.
Yeah.
And they don't want to get rid of the house. And the house has been sitting there vacant for 10 plus years because they've been in assisted living, because you're allowed, you want to get into tax stuff, it doesn't count.
Right.
You can still get, help from Social Security to cover your assisted living facility. So, because your homestead is not
Yeah.
included, I don't know if you know that. But these houses, not only were they not managed
Yeah.
or in really any maintenance way for the last 10, 20, 30 years after their husband died, but then you have somebody, the house has been vacant for 5 to 10 years
Right.
because in doing no maintenance.
Right.
And now you have somebody who thinks they're going to get over $1 million for a house that needs about 150,000. We had this happen a lot when I was looking
Right.
this last year. There were homes that needed 150 to $200,000 of basic maintenance.
Right.
This is not additions. This is not, oh, I want to build a fancy garage or I want to rip out the kitchen. No, there's literally, you can't walk through the kitchen because there's so much broken tile.
Yeah.
There's holes in the floor.
Yeah.
There's holes in the ceiling. There's asbestos. There's mice infestations because they've been vacant. And they still want top dollar. So, and they can because of the supply and demand. A lot of the time what happens is these houses sit on the market for an extended period of time. A developer comes in and lowballs finally when they start to get desperate.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time too, it's hard to get qualified for those mortgages and the people don't want to have to wait for a renovation loan, which by the way, it takes about 90 days to close. And they just don't want to wait, which is understandable because a lot of developers will come in with cash or close to cash.
Mhm.
But it creates, that's part of what, for someone who's moving from the starter home up to their secondary home, or whatever, a larger family size home, and they want to buy these larger homes, there's still that big barrier too. So having some sort of transition support to help say, hey,
Thinking.
don't want to be mean, but you guys are, we need to start thinking about this.
Right.
Have to be realistic.
This
Not
isn't
only,
really about the house.
it's never about the house, really. It's about the sentimental component.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another factor that really,
Yep.
we were when we were looking for houses, we were surprised how bad. A lot of them, there were ones that had mice, rats, raccoon infestations, asbestos, mold, holes literally where there's water coming.
You can just drive around the town and you can tell, like, if you're from the area and you lived here forever, you know that nobody's been living in that house. It's
Mhm.
just sitting there and you go, gee, I wonder what's going on with that. And it's probably many of the things you're saying.
So,
And then the other problem with part of the expenses that we have is those seniors who maybe didn't plan for retirement and are now forced to go into some sort of like memory care, which is extraordinarily expensive. So the kids have put, mom or dad, into one of the memory care, paying $7,000+ a month. And they're relying on that house money eventually to pay for it. So they of course want top dollar for the house because, potentially mom and dad didn't save enough money to actually take care of them, at these extended ages. So we're running into that too, getting back to Sam's point where they want top dollar for it because one, possibly they can, regardless of the state of the house. And two, they need the money now to pay for care.
So
Which is-
Carol's transition
Yeah.
is like, is at the top of the list to maybe, but also be able to give them the options of what they can do.
Mhm.
So that's key, I think. I think we're hearing that over and over.
I think I'm gonna fill that in. Activity number 4 is local initiatives and programs. Like we're breaking out what you guys are saying into the different buckets.
Yep.
I feel like for the vision, at least, there's some sort of statement about housing being accessible, affordable. Gonna do stuff with A's here, and then there's alternatives too.
Alternatives.
So there's gonna be some sort of, I think, sentence, and we'll workshop it with you guys next time. And
Yep.
Right.
but we're kind of, I think, getting there with an idea and almost getting close to strategy. I think we've just kind of been hitting a lot of different points.
Right. And my other thought about strategy was around leveraging the expertise that already exists in the town with other, boards and nonprofits.
Yeah.
And people. There's a lot of talent if we could, that's kind of where I was thinking about that innovation group. If we
Yeah.
can come together and share their perspective and maybe their resources.
That's right.
Cause we have a lot of talent in the community, I think.
Yeah, it's really special.
Kind of like Habitat for.
What's that?
Kind of like Habitat for Housing, if everybody pulls together and
Yeah.
can kind of,
About it and shares ideas. One thing I usually have for these plans is having some sort of implementation committee afterwards, and if you meet once a quarter instead of every month, go over the strategies, and if you're running this some sort of competition or innovation program too, that could be a part of it. Sometimes like the Affordable Housing Trust will run that, or it could even be like an offshoot of this committee, but just an idea there of Concord, I think, calls it the Housing Roundtable, because they get lots of different stakeholders together and talk about it. A fun idea.
That would really be helpful. When you talked about the sort of the breakout of housing stock, with a lot of our rental units being in these now big buildings that are coming online, how many are in smaller buildings, and how much, like you talked about, how much do small landlords need some coaching or some assistance or things like that? Like, but also, you know, it could be, this might actually help people sort of think about, like, well, you know, I have this ranch, I could redevelop it into a duplex or something else, like, like, I don't know, like, help them also think through options.
Yeah, I'm pulling up my data here, but I don't have it quite on hand. I love the idea though, and that's one, but in other plans, which is like help communicate stuff for small landlords, make sure everyone knows what programs are available. Also, like, there's gonna be some hand holding in the process too, like, cause they don't have millions and millions of dollars, but yeah, I think you have a really good amount of old missing middle housing stock of 3, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Just from driving around today, we saw so many of them. And those people like are gonna be help navigating things. And I think maybe this goes into like economic development strategy, but if you want build to build local wealth and have people who live here be the ones who are building and renting to people who live here, like that's gonna be really key, is helping people in Wakefield learn how to navigate the process and how to get money and how to go to the zoning board and all that stuff. And a lot of it is just, I think it's almost like education and maybe getting some more another planner to help out Sam or something like that. But yeah, I really like that idea.
Hey, Noah, on
Yeah.
kind of going toward what Theo was saying, do we know, or is this part of the plan to say that there's X number of housing units of which, you know, there are X number of, you know, two family, three family, how much of it is rented, how much of it is, you know, like, where does it all sit?
Yeah, we can break them up by, like, you know, is it a 2-family, a 3-family, or single family, and whether it's rented or ownership. I forget if we can do both of those things. Actually, Flavio, my data person, is here. Is there a way to like figure out tenure and like number of units and structure at the same time? Or is it like, it could be hard to mix them? Or maybe like learning, say in 2022, there are 100 duplexes, what percentage of them are for rent or for ownership, which I don't know if you're allowed to-
Pie charts by bedroom size
Yeah.
or by household, like how many of these 4 bedrooms are owner versus renter?
Question. I don't think we have it in our spreadsheet right now, but
I mean, I think that would be
Yeah.
good information as it relates to planning,
yeah,
because
what you're looking for, yeah.
yeah, I mean, this gets back to, I think, you know, Carol had a really good point about, are there people, and this gets back because I'm also attached to the Wakefield Housing Trust, is, are there people that might be, you know, willing to sell to the town
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
that it can be developed affordable? And so, you know, this is where maybe the town could connect with, you know, a developer where they get the property for, you know, whether we're a syndicator where we're kind of marrying stuff together,
yeah,
that we could, I mean, create some of these places where maybe we could take you know, a larger home, you know, cut it into 2, if you will, and then allow that to be part of the affordable housing stock. I mean, that's a really good point.
I learned, it looks like that data is readily available in the census. I just found it. But I think that reminds me of something I believe Acton did, where they mapped out every home that had been sold, and it was like you could just filter the ones that were purchased 30 years ago, or maybe the mortgage is done and folks are getting older and looking to downsize. And you're like, okay, which are the homes that we could target as the Affordable Housing Trust to go up and buy a deed restriction or something from them, which is kind of interesting.
Right.
Well, I think it would be really good for planning too,
Yeah.
because now as it relates to, I don't know, kind of the planning board stuff is, okay, well, now we'd have a better idea of, okay, well, this house sits on, a full acre, right? It
Okay.
needs a lot of work. Could this piece of property, if sold, turn into one of those, like Carol had said, we put like 3 mini houses on there.
Mhm.
And I think that information would go a long way toward planning for the town in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. We looked at your zoning just a little bit because it didn't have the most up-to-date GIS, but it looked like just looking at one thing, which is minimum lot sizes. About half of the parcels in each district were too small for what the zoning said. So I think there's like some very, very basic, maybe tidying up or touching up work to do with the zoning. But pairing, so like say, this zoning district, the GR, which I think
Yeah.
is like a general residence and a lot of these, says your parcel needs to be 12,000 square feet.
Okay.
But half of them were less than 12,000 square feet. So on paper, they didn't line up with what the zoning said. And
Well, and
Yeah.
so what that ends up, the issue that ends up causing is, let's say you want to construct an addition. Now, ADUs are a little bit different. I don't want to get too into the weeds,
Yeah.
but let's just say you were trying to construct an addition.
Yeah.
You can't construct an addition because your lot is non-conforming in most cases. You end up then having to jump through all of these hoops just to do a very basic thing, what most would consider basic thing to your house.
right.
You may or may not be able to meet setbacks, like if the existing setbacks are 5 feet and you want to maintain that 5-foot setback on your side, but now current setback says it's supposed to be 15 feet. So now your addition has to be 15 feet in,
And your.
and your house is 5 feet.
yeah,
So that's part of what your existing zoning code needs to have some consideration for existing structures.
That's,
Not having all of these different moving pieces. If you read Escaping the Housing Trap, which is a book related to the Strong Towns movement, they analyzed Somerville. And while we aren't Somerville, the story is funny because there's only like 20 structures in the entire city of Somerville that actually meet their existing zoning
Love it.
when they did the analysis. So they started really pulling apart their zoning code after that and realizing that they really needed to look at having zoning reflect more of the existing structures and then also kind of direct where we want things to go. So it's a really good example. It's a very extreme example.
Yeah.
Of existing zoning code needs to really support the existing your zoning code needs to support the existing structures, so that you can be able to meet some of these demands and shifting needs readily on the property itself.
And what Somerville did was they created a form-based code, which is like the new cool like planning version, which focuses more on like how buildings look rather than some of these like sillier requirements like 12,000 square feet that doesn't line up. And one like closer to home example is Danvers for their MBTA district did a form-based code in their downtown. So you could do mixed use and then like, but it's really like they wanted to bring more people to the downtown to shop at businesses and also make sure the new buildings like looked appropriate. And it's like,
Yeah.
this code really focuses on how it looks and feels, which is, I think what we really care about with zoning is how it adds or changes things. So that's just like one cool example and idea that who knows. Yeah.
Burlington, we just did a mixed use form-based code zone for the mall. So to add, some housing and some other stuff in there.
No, not, we just were talking about that in our North Shore Regional MAPC group meeting literally last week.
Yeah.
We were talking to, Liz was on the phone.
Okay.
Anyway. But yeah, so.
So zoning.
Going back to seniors for a minute, because I
Please, yeah.
guess single-minded. A lot of seniors don't move because the process of moving is too daunting. And so if there's, and I think about this from the senior center or the council on aging point of view, if there's some way to gather resources to
Yeah.
help people move, really, I can name several people who maybe would move
Mm.
if they didn't actually have to do the move.
Yeah, yeah.
Or think about how to organize their house. If you've, to your points, if you've lived in a house for 40 or
gosh.
50 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
Stuff.
there are a lot of people who are literally paralyzed
Yeah.
by that process.
And if you have stuff from your kids.
And your
or a
kids,
Spouse that has passed.
Right.
That just
Yeah.
adds more weight to.
and I will tell you, kids want nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing, especially if it's mahogany, nothing.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but it is, so a way to go, with the seniors, just
Yeah.
support them and giving them the ideas, like maybe they could sell it to the town, or maybe there's someone who can help them move, or we develop a partnership with one of those companies that comes in and moves people or whatever.
Yeah,
Because
so
that
many
is
things.
part of why we're getting stuck with, where Sam doesn't have.
Listen, I know, my mother told me 20 years ago that she was leaving the house feet first, so that's.
Julie S., you have your hand up?
Hi,
If you're going to speak, you need to turn your camera on.
okay, thank you. Hi, Julie Scott. I just wanted to add what.
Julie, you need to turn your camera on so we can see
Oh,
you.
Thought it was on. Okay, can you see me? Now, can you see me?
No.
How about now?
There it is.
Okay, yeah.
Turn the
Um,
lights on. Good.
Tying in with what the previous two speakers were talking about, I was the one of the executors of my dad's estate, so I was in charge of his very large house in Wakefield for a number of years. And in his will, it said that he was to be there as long as possible, and that worked out for us. But if there had been an option for major tax incentives to do some of what you were saying, he may have planned a bit differently. It was to his advantage to stay in his home, especially it was during COVID. Didn't want to put him in a nursing home, certainly wanted to keep him out of the hospital as much as possible, but our family is different than other families in other situations. There may be families that would hear what you're saying and say, if there were major tax incentives for us to make a move much earlier, my parent might look at that situation differently. And when it's in a will or in a trust, your hands are tied. You have to do exactly what is specifically stated in the document. So maybe people would think about this differently if there were other incentives to make them do so. Thank you.
Good suggestion.
That's
I mean, to that point, maybe like what other tax incentives could Wakefield offer to help someone, sell a property to the trust? So,
I don't even know if that's something that's a whole other.
but
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, the role of the trust is to buy the land.
Yeah.
And right, and then we can.
I don't know.
To the family, it's all about money. As the
For sure.
executor, you're in it to make the money and to continue to make the money, especially when they're not working. So
Right.
if there is not an option for an executor of an estate to legally make money, they're not going to do that. So it really is pretty much all that. Is there a way to look at that federally and statewise? Because that would move people. And I think that
agree.
is probably a large percentage of the housing market freeze that we have. There's no incentive for us to do that as executors, especially if you don't want to go into a nursing home, you don't want to go into an assisted living that may actually cost you more than staying at home. And it also runs down the house. Thankfully, my brother and I were able to do a lot of work to the house while my dad was out of it for a bit. And he moved back into a beautiful home. But for a lot of people, they can't literally empty the house, all 4 floors, clean it, wipe it. He had cancer. We made it so that his doctor was very pleased that he was going back into such a wonderfully clean facility. But I don't know how we did that. It was during the pandemic, and my brother and I both had the time. But it's very, very difficult for families to do so.
That's support.
It's everything. It's really all that. If you could solve that problem, you would open up. I just think of the neighborhood that I grew up in on the west side. You would easily open up 8 to 10 homes immediately if there was an incentive for families to do that. But you'd have to start it now so that lawyers who do the planning, the elder law, would have something substantial to show families. This is a really good thing for you to consider and put it in your will that these government programs are available to assist you later in your life. So it really just comes down to money. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Noah,
Yeah.
just to, it's 7:03. I wanna, we kind of not
Respect, yeah.
really, we're not really, I don't know how well we've played
We did a
on
lot of
each
things.
one of these activities. We've kind of just been this global brainstorming. So where do you think we kind of stand right now?
I think we're doing really well. And what I've been doing is, as you guys talk, putting stuff into the three buckets of planning and initiatives and capacity. I think if we really wanted to focus our time, maybe goals would be the best one. And I'm sure some more strategies will keep coming out as we talk about goals. And then, yeah, anything you guys have written down and you'd like to share it, give back to me. We'll read through it all and prepare this into something. But yeah, my suggestion would be focus on goals with the time we have left to make sure that's we're in we've got a little bit of a vision here and maybe outline a few objectives, I think, for the plan in the next 5-10 years. Let me try to think of what some examples have been before. Often it'll be a statement about affordability broadly. It'll be talking about a few sites that we want to work to leverage and transform. One that came up today was the Hurd School, seeing that and as a potential opportunity. I think there's some zoning tweaks could be another goal. Obviously something for our seniors that keeps coming up over and over again in the survey and the data. But yeah, we could just, if anyone had any things they filled out ahead of time and goals to bring right now, and we could just spend a little time brainstorming that. We'd go far with some goal discussion.
Well, I think one of my goals would be that there's I don't know what the word is for it. A coordination, a thoughtful coordination between this plan, the planning board, and the zoning board. Sometimes I feel like everybody's working a little independently in their own little bubble. And I think if we need to make this work, all of those pieces of housing need to come together to make sure that the vision is being propagated, because we've had one of these plans before and I'm not sure how much it was paid attention to.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I'd add the town council probably onto that too. And part of why we're trying to sort of brief the planning board and the town council ahead of time is so they feel looped in and maybe excited about it too. Maybe that strategy on implementation on either this group or some other group that kind of keeps talking about it could be helpful too.
Right.
But yeah, I love that about coordination and making sure the plan doesn't just sit on the shelf. That
Right, it's not just
accessible.
put onto paper, that
Yeah,
whatever we put on paper actually moves into actually action and things get done.
yeah.
Yeah, so not just goals, but
Right.
actionable
Action,
steps.
yeah,
Ways to measure.
because we can sit here and talk all about it, but until we actually get it filed, get it done, and then take these and make something happen out of it, then it's just sitting on paper.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good one, Gail said.
Thank you, Gail.
Well, naming responsibilities, I think is the right, because even if it's an actionable step without saying who's taking that action, then,
Yeah,
you know, it's in an emergency, you call 911, not someone, because then everybody goes, well, somebody will do it, right? Like that's the,
Who does own this plan, to your point of accountability?
Right, like when we're all done,
When we're done.
what happens?
question, yeah.
What happens to it?
Tracks it. Oh,
So-
Hi.
You'll need an assistant.
it's not possible for you to do all of
Use
that.
that.
Thanks. So that, yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah, so
The other goal that I have been thinking about as I've been listening is also around educating the community about all these things that people don't know about options or housing. I'm not wording it exactly right, but particularly I'm thinking about seniors who entered the housing world 40 or 50 years ago.
Yeah,
And it's very different now. the options are different, and I think particularly, as you were saying before about your mom and Zoom, seniors can get paralyzed
Yeah,
with
they
new
do.
information and new
information.
ideas, and I think how we as a community can be supportive of all those transitions that people make.
Yeah.
No, you know,
Yeah, the senior center always has forums and little things for them
Right.
to understand, and that's a great way to like, okay, you know, if you're thinking about selling your house, blah, 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 they need the information to know what's
Right.
out there.
be nice to have a housing czar, which may not be the right word in this climate, but you know what I mean.
Leader.
Right, because otherwise, the programs, I always feel like they're
Yeah.
train and hope. You say a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff and then you hope people get it, but they don't, because that's not how any of us learn, so.
Yeah.
Where do people go with all these questions?
It's almost like you need a housing social worker.
Right,
Yeah.
like, look, Sam, you've got so much expertise and you struggled through your housing process, right? To look for a house?
Yeah, I mean, it's the fifth house I bought.
Oh,
The fifth house I have bought, and it's more of a headache here to navigate all of it because so many reasons, but the short version is just the market is so hard here. Even you can have the best real estate agent. You can have somebody who's literally contacting every single person in theirs and their friends and their friends' friends, Rolodex or whatever phone to see if there's anything off market even. And there's still just such a supply issue for people trying to buy a house. And then you have the issue of people taking these starter homes away from other people and adding on to it, or developers
Right.
buying. I mean, very charming houses in that we saw too that were way too small for us. But for most people, it's easy and they're going for a moderate price, but the developer comes in because they haven't been taken care of for years.
Knock it down.
And they get knocked down in a huge $2.6 million McMansion.
Yeah.
Gets built on an almost acre lot for one family.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, I watch it, I pass by it.
lousy. Yeah. So it's either too big or apartments and condos.
right.
There's nothing in the middle. I mean, that's, I think, what every city and town is seeing now.
Well, most of the houses that are built, I mean, we noticed this looking too, everything is either like under 2,000 square feet or it's over 4,000 square
Right,
feet.
but it's not.
So what
Yeah.
people want to buy with two kids is around 3,000 square feet.
Right.
We don't need 4,000. I mean, most of us can't afford a
Yeah.
3.5 or $6
Yeah.
million house that's over 4,000 square feet, or I can't believe the size of some of the houses I've seen. But we also can't move into, it's incredibly hard to move into something under 2,000 square feet with two kids and all this, two young children and all the stuff that comes with them. We
Right.
could do it.
Right, but
But
it's not ideal.
It's very, very, very hard to function.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So that's what the.
right sizing. It's not just the middle housing, but
Right, right size.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
it's
Yeah.
trying to be cognizant. I don't know that there's, I mean, I think one thing I see, at least, if I can add my own
Please.
little goal, is having some way to have those conversations with developers that not every single thing needs to be luxury. We
Yeah.
don't need to be building something with the top of the line finishes. There are plenty of people that want to move into something with Corian countertops or laminate countertops. They just don't need to be $7,000 countertops.
Countertop.
Teeny tiny. I mean, and you may think it's not that big of a deal, but the problem
It
is
is.
$7,000
But just a
for
counter,
just countertops in one unit,
right,
because easily it could hit 7,000 by the time you add in
Oh, yeah.
bathrooms.
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
For stone countertops, and you've got that over 10 units. That's
Yeah.
a lot of money for something that doesn't need to happen.
Yeah.
For most people to be able to move. I mean, sure, do you care if you have fancy countertops? I mean, they're not easier to maintain either. They need to be sealed, they need to
Right.
be cleaned. You can't set hot things down on them. It just, there's things like that like, is there room for having conversations with developers for right sizing housing?
Yeah.
There are other incentives that we can have for right sizing those developments.
And the political climate may change some of these things. And I think that's the other thing that we're uniquely facing is there's a different political climate. It may change the economy. I was reading about people don't want big luxury houses anymore as they're hanging on to their cash. So, that could change. What we plan now could look really different given what's going on in our country. I mean, we just,
Yeah.
no, editorializing about it, but we're certainly in the midst of change, although I will
Uncertainty.
editorialize if you'd like.
Oh, I have stuff.
Yeah.
I would like, as an offshoot of any future implementation group, I think talking about, density, is important because like that's what killed the planning board's proposal for MBTA.
Dirty word
Um,
right now.
yeah, well, and I, it like, it was just very hard to visualize, like, and, there's, so, so I think that's positive, like, a three, we were championing a 3-unit property and it was used against us,
Mm.
as being too dense, like, so like, this is the right density, and there's like, no, that's exactly the wrong density. So
Mm.
like, that's just a really hard conversation to have.
The conversation Steve was having with us on the tour today, there's a huge difference in Wakefield in going from the duplex
Mhm.
to 3 or 4-plex.
Mhm.
Yeah.
People feel the character is very
Hmm.
different between
point.
those
Yes.
types of units.
Yep.
And I think a good question to follow that up with is, well, what if there were 2 duplex buildings on a lot?
Mhm.
What if the lot was divided in half? What if
Yeah.
it were a smaller lot? To kind of try to really understand what the concern, because I don't think we actually really know
Yeah.
what the community's concern is over those denser units or
Yeah.
denser structures.
Interesting. And I think, was it John, to John's point about the energy concerns and the way things are built in the community and what we're doing, that's the other piece that we've got to face is the climate issues
Yeah.
and the utility expenses, et cetera. So how do we think about that?
Such a hard thing about these old homes that are not
Right.
energy efficient and cost so much a fortune to
Exactly.
heat, and yeah, needing to convert them.
We paid
Yeah.
a lot of money to just be able to get an electric car to plug it into our detached garage, because
Yeah.
it's a 100-and-something-year-old house. They
There's a
weren't
lot
wired
to
for
have
all that stuff.
updated. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you didn't have enough, I know.
I had one other thing I just wanted to mention briefly, and then I've got to run for another meeting. On the energy conservation side, I'm wondering if there's a space in the the housing production plan is the appropriate place to think about like bulk purchasing for weatherization type of work that needs to be done in homes that are owned by senior citizens. I've done a lot of
Leo
that
does.
work, professionally and in my own home. And if there was a program way of doing like bulk purchasing and bulk retrofits for, say, windows or attic insulation, a lot of those types of basic home improvements, could lower the operating costs for homeowners and certainly increase comfort in the existing homes.
This would be like assisting with the Mass Save program.
Yeah, because there's that, and then Leo Fuel Assistance will go out to a lot of senior homes and they'll assess their home.
Yeah.
And they'll hook them up with what you said and have them come in and
But if,
do a lot of the
but
stuff.
if we organized
Sort of program.
15 seniors together,
Yep.
they'll all do Mass Save and we'll help all of them
Right,
get through that process
Yep.
by handling paperwork or something, or like giving them some cash down to maybe
right,
close the gap to get there or something.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
it would help.
I would rather the developers do more energy efficient stuff than stone countertops. That's my.
Yep, that's great.
Right.
Good ideas.
A goal I haven't heard is keeping the sort of subsidized housing inventory at 10%, or I know you guys are really, really close to
Try
it.
not to say that too much. That is one of the reasons why
Yeah.
I joined the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need, that's huge.
That's a very common one to say we
To
want
get this file, to get that on there.
and keep it at that.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
biggie for me.
Well, right, and that means some continuous
Mhm.
adding on because
Yeah.
you're continuously losing on
It's
it.
a very hard balance,
Yeah.
which is amazing to me that Linfield has reached their 10%.
They're like 11 or 12.
I don't understand how. My brother lives there. I'm like, where is your,
Concord was at 10% for many years, or they're not right now, but
but I don't
many
understand.
years because they had a development that was,
And that it took up everything.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just like,
it
I
doesn't now, but
it's
it
gotta be Route 1 where they have all their, I don't know. I can't even picture where it all is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're up there. But that is,
very close.
we are
Yeah.
close. We're very close.
And we just keep bouncing right around it.
Yeah.
And have been, I think, for years, so.
So even when the 400 units are finished and that won't, that's, I thought they're not in the count until they're habitable.
They're not in the count until we have a CO.
Right,
So there's,
Okay. I didn't know
all
that.
400 units are not counting.
counted yet.
It's not a, that they won't be, it's only 76 units up there that are affordable. And those are the only units, because if they had gone through the 40B process
Yeah,
and they had done 25% of those units affordable, which is just slightly more than what they're doing now,
right,
then they would have gotten the entire, we would have gotten the entire development to count.
okay.
I wasn't here for that. I don't know if there were discussions about doing that or going down that path or not. But they ended up just having the 18% inclusionary zoning component. So we'll have, I believe it's 76, might be 79. I'd have to double check what the actual
Okay,
final number is. But we have a number of other developments. We have, I think, probably 20 units that are really close to coming on. And like I said, we're right up
Yeah,
against it.
no,
We're really close. It's just a number of additional things.
yeah, so that's a biggie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure
And
it's-
I want
Right
to
there.
point out, Sam, that was a good point that you just made. This gets back to my comment about, wow, if there could have been a coordination between the planning board, the zoning board, and the housing, then maybe we could have known that ahead of time to
Yeah.
try to change the outcomes on some of this stuff. That's what I'm hoping that this plan does, so that we don't run into those things, in the future.
And it's not expired.
Yeah.
Gail, I want to thank you for a really good meeting. Appreciate it. I'm going to sign off. Nice.
All right, thank you, John, for.
Nice hearing
Bye,
all the
John.
ideas that are going forward. Thank you.
I do want to encourage, as I said, I'm not the chair of this committee, but I really do want to encourage, and I know I have not done it, but I'm going to. This has been a really good, I think, productive conversation meeting that we've had. We didn't have a quorum, so we couldn't vote on anything, but we could discuss it. I really do encourage everybody to actually do their best to actually fill this out and send it back to Noah, to everybody, including myself, what we've just talked about, put it in writing, send it to Noah so that he knows where we're coming from.
Yeah.
Even if maybe it doesn't fit, and once again, Noah, you can stop me if you want me to, but
No, you're
even
good.
if it doesn't fit in one of these boxes,
Yeah.
like throw the ideas out there.
Mhm.
I know that, no, I don't want to do it in the meeting, but I was reading through the Danvers one and I did have some questions about some of the line items that I thought looked interesting, but I didn't quite know what they meant.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to, that's why he's here, is to communicate with him kind of, once again, we don't, with open meeting laws, as long as you are directing the conversation to Noah and not to the entire group, it doesn't, we don't go against the open meeting stuff.
Yeah.
And then from that, in between now and the next meeting, that would be beneficial then, I think, for Noah to be able to come back
Yeah.
with
Synthesize it.
information from what we've written him and talked about or whatever. So is that
Absolutely.
okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Please do write me. And yeah, if there's any questions, I can share the answers to those with the broader group at our, I think, March 18th meeting. Yeah, just a month from today. It'd be great.
So the next meeting is March 18th?
Yes, March
Okay.
18th at 6 p.m. is what I've got on my calendar. Just that same, the third Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
And then I did have,
Okay.
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So let me just go
Yeah.
through. So you've got we've had it said, we've kind of been in a roundabout way working on the strategies and visions and things like that. we're going to do our best, everyone here, to fill everything out and send it back to you so that you have some stuff in writing.
Yeah.
In addition to obviously the meeting minutes that we have here, whatever AI is recording this thing. So on C, consultant suggested dates, for the virtual community forums. Why don't you touch on that, Noah, so we know, I know what that.
Yeah. And I talked to Sam last week. We're thinking of actually doing one of them hybrid. So I'll come down and do a little talking through whatever we've narrowed down after our next meeting in March. We'll then do another round of revisions. And then basically I'll do a little presentation, touch on a little bit of the data stuff, community engagement, and talk about, I usually try to pick 5 to 7 of the key ideas. Don't bore people with like, and key would mean like things that could be controversial that we really want to like hear the community's input. So we'll talk next meeting, I think, about what those will be. Right now, it's just figuring out 2 dates for those. And I think through a few in the agenda, make sure I have the right ones up for you guys. Yeah, just wanted to make sure we get our dates on the calendar so then we can start planning for it. The first one was Wednesday, the 9th of April. Wednesday, the 9th of April or Thursday, the 10th at 6 or 7 p.m. And the strategy would be for the next week to change the date and the time a little bit. So if it didn't work for someone because they have work or school pickup or something, they can drop into the next one and hear. Maybe the first one we'll do in-person hybrid and the second virtually or something like that. But how does the 9th or the 10th of April sound to you guys? Is there a consensus?
Fine. I will say seniors don't like to come out at night.
Yeah.
Coming out to night meetings is, even when it gets lighter, it's, you just don't have this, maybe
Yeah.
6.
Okay. Yeah,
Rather than 7 or 8.
I mean, we could even do 5. I don't know what people's schedule is, but at least for on our side, even during the day, to have one of them in
Right.
early afternoon is no problem for us either.
Yeah, and it's no problem for me. Like those are my regular work hours, so I can show up. And then the other one we could do later, the virtual one could be later in the evening and
Right.
people tune in on their computers and ask questions that.
How do we get all that? Do we get in touch with the senior center, let people know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You do all that, okay. Sorry, I should have
it all.
known that.
Put a different hat on.
And I'll take it back to the Council on Aging.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then we have the,
So we could pencil in Wednesday, the 9th
Yeah.
at 5 o'clock.
That's not school vacation week.
Yeah, let's make sure it's.
Wednesday, the 9th.
Oh, that's
No, it's not.
the next week.
Vacation week's the week of the 21st, I think.
Oh, okay.
The Patriots Day week, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how it-
and when is the goal to file with the state?
The goal is to get the town council and the planning board to vote to adopt this in May, so we can just,
Okay,
minute that's in, we can.
and then I think what was the other goal to make sure that the state is filed and everything July? I remember July was
I
something.
think the grant runs
There's,
out.
yeah, we have to have everything filed before the end of June.
Yeah.
End of
We
June,
have to have a buffer, so I'm really trying to get everything in by the end of May. That's why our goal is still trying to get.
Okay, gotcha. All right, got it.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
What do you think will be the most controversial things? I know, but just in general, in your experience in other towns,
Yeah,
what's controversial?
I would say last week in Danvers, it was the very last meeting, I suggested going from single family zoning to 2-family, and there was people really did not like that.
Everything.
That was horrifying to them.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll be suggesting that in this plan. I think there'll be some light zoning rewrites or something fun, like do a study for the downtown with form-based codes. Honestly, yeah, nothing we've discussed today, I think would be really controversial or out there. Maybe I'll try to come up with some big ideas to share with you guys
Yeah.
next meeting and bounce it off you, but
Should
Yeah.
put in one stinker so that then they
Yeah.
feel like they,
you
well,
know,
just like raise like a whole neighborhood.
Make sure they all come.
something like that. Ban all the cars in Wakefield. I don't know. Something.
I always wonder how we get people to think about the good of the town,
Yeah.
not just their own, how it affects their own.
Some people are just not gonna
We- I
change
mean,
their
we all do
minds.
it.
Yeah, I think the trick is to figure out how to get self-interest to be aligned with the common good.
Yeah.
You have to understand what their underlying issue is, so
Right.
that their self-interest can relate to whatever that common good is. Once you find a component to connect on, then typically have disarmed somebody.
Right.
You can have that conversation to actually understand what their concerns
What
are.
options?
From there, you can build onto it. Sometimes those conversations don't take very long. Sometimes they can take a very extended period of
Very
time to really
Right.
help. And sometimes people don't even really know what they want.
Right.
So sometimes you don't even get anywhere. They just are upset about something and they can't quite put their finger on it, and whether or not it's related to the town or their personal life, you don't know.
And if money is is one of.
Money's
the
always the
ones,
top
but
thing.
The only one, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
In your experience, okay.
Change is always really hard.
Mhm.
A lot of things. Yeah, I'm thinking so the next week, we'll just have a Monday and a Tuesday, and we're thinking something all virtual and maybe a little later, do it at 6 or 7. So if someone's working, they get off, they can tune in and write some comments to us on Zoom. Yeah, trying to think, would this ideal person we're imagining be more likely to tune in? Maybe you have kids, you're like busy, would you tune in on a Monday or a Tuesday? Which day is crazier?
Probably a Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Mondays, like everybody's getting back to their regular routines, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of chaos and screaming a lot of the time. It's hard after the weekend. 3-year-old does not
Yeah.
understand like the timeline continuum. No. And yeah, he has not grasped the concept of the very non-tangible concept of time. So Tuesdays are typically, it would be
Yeah.
easier. If it were me, I would always advocate for a daytime meeting. I would rather take my lunchtime to
Yeah.
sit through at least part of a meeting
Okay.
than to be trying to do this with my kids. I've literally had to run. I'm sure, I think I've done at least one planning board when my wife was
Yeah.
out of town and trying to juggle 2 kids and making dinner, and trying to be on mute while managing a
could-
meeting. So it's very, very hard to do that in an evening time.
Rebranch this to like 12 or 1 PM lunch and learn kind of thing, like just an hour, and it'll be the exact same thing, but yeah, maybe some people will tune in because they
Yeah,
have to
people
deal
are
with
much more, at least from a parent side, to
Yeah.
being able to get somebody engaged. If I could pop on during, there's a lot less barriers. 6 to 7 is also bedtime and bath time. And
Yeah.
anybody who has a baby all the way up through probably a 7 or 8-year-old where you're still helping to get them
Yeah.
managed for bedtime, that is like a don't talk to anybody time. It's very hard with kids.
Yeah.
So,
And seniors are.
well, I mean, yeah, it's dark, and especially if there's,
Like, dinner at 4 or whatever,
yeah.
it's little stereotypical. True.
Well, and it's hard right now
Right.
having people come
So
out,
dark.
not just because it's dark, but because it's also incredibly icy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very, very tricky.
Yeah.
So having it at least hybrid is always helpful.
Yeah.
It'd be
Like-
great if we could have something at the senior center in the day and the new space should be open by then. They renovated the
Mhm.
upper floors of the senior center.
Mhm.
So it's set to open, but we'll see.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that too, senior center wide. I don't wanna
Yeah.
make somebody, but I'm like, well, that would be ideal if we wanna catch seniors in general and their feelings, since this is part of the market we're trying to get at, right?
Yeah.
Except
To
we
be able
don't
to have
get
something
that-
on site.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Gail. We don't get the full breadth of seniors at the senior center.
Yeah.
We get one segment of our senior population, but the other person who was on talking about, the big house of her father's,
Yeah.
we're not getting those people.
Right, at
into
the senior center.
So we're
Right.
gonna have to think about, maybe we can, how we can advertise this and maybe bring in more people who have a breadth of issues, so.
Okay, so you got the dates, right? We're gonna do
Yeah.
the Wednesday 4/9 and then the Tuesday 4/15.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Isn't
Yeah.
that tax day?
That's.
Yeah.
tax
It is tax
Okay.
day.
Cool.
Why? Does
For
that matter?
some people, yeah.
Oh, is that?
I think it's,
Is it the 15th?
it's the 15th. So that's still, even mass, it would be the tax day. I know sometimes it gets moved because of
Patriots.
Patriots
Yeah,
Day,
no,
but-
it's a
but
Tuesday,
it
so
stays-
it'll stand. Okay, so we have the upcoming
We're
project.
not doing
miles-
it.
What's that? You're not reading that?
No commentary right now.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I'm just, just kidding. No, I'm all about for Christ.
Oh, I
I'm
was
sorry,
gonna
I'm just
file
wanted to
already.
move forward. So the next
Yeah.
March meeting, March 18th at 6.
Yeah.
Sam, how do we, I don't want to go against open meeting laws, but we had a number, obviously, of people that did not make it to the meeting tonight. I would really like to encourage them to do what I've asked the group here, is to please actually fill this out or
Yeah,
send.
I can send an email out, requesting everybody, I can just send it out to the whole group.
Okay.
And just ask for, and make sure that way people have a fresh copy of
Okay.
the document.
The
too.
ninth was that?
Yes, and to encourage them to fill it in, because this is, I mean, that's what we're here for, is to help, Noah and the project plan, come together.
Maybe we could set like a deadline of end of day next Tuesday or something, or it could even be.
Oh, that was what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
A deadline would be helpful, one, for me, because I'm deadline oriented,
Yeah.
but two, I
Yeah.
think most people. If it's
Yeah.
just.
If it's open.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you get a flag on the email if there's a deadline in it, right? Or you can put it. Remind yourself.
Yeah, that's fine. I think that's a good idea.
Not a problem. I can send that out.
Okay.
One really quick thing I just want to clarify for my minutes, and for being able to schedule some of these meetings. For the Wednesday 4/9, what time is it? I have 6 o'clock.
Wednesday 4/9, I had 5 o'clock.
We're gonna do 5.
Seniors,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
you do a little earlier,
And then Tuesday 4:15.
maybe at noon or
4:15.
12, okay? Trying to do a lunch and learn.
I mean, it's an alternative. I've
You can try it.
plenty of
Maybe.
other, I mean, we can see what happens. I would hope that, people would be able to
Yeah.
come, because it is accessible for different variety of people.
Yeah.
I think I would be like, if it was me, I'd be more likely to go for a lunch thing too, so I love the idea.
Okay,
I get burned out by like evening meetings too on Zoom. and-
It's,
I agree.
Days long.
it's a very hard day.
Okay, so 15th
I
one,
miss hearing your.
5 at 9,
For those of us who don't have
and
young
March
children. anymore.
18th is still 6. Okay,
I always look forward to that.
Yeah, and I'll include in.
Yeah,
the
I know
email
you will.
too all of the dates,
okay.
for the people that weren't here. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we're gonna have to skip item 5 because we don't have a quorum to vote on the minutes, I'm assuming. I'm not even sure I got the minutes, but maybe I did. Item 6, chair comments. I don't really have any comments. I just want to once again go on record to say encouraging everybody to, in writing, get back to Noah. About, even if it's just a personal concern, but global concerns and any kind of ideas that you might have. Does anybody else have any comments before we move to adjourn? Okay. I need someone to move to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
The meeting is, do we need to do a roll call?
Well, we can't vote on anything.
Okay, so
Go ahead and I'll just go ahead and record it, just so we have it, and then I'll figure out what we need to do to deal with that later, or what I need to do.
I think maybe Gail can just say thank you.
okay, so Gail Siebert, yes to adjourn. Theo,
Yes.
Sam,
Aye.
Carol,
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
All right. Thank you
Good.
very much, everyone.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.